So what is the purpose of worrying? Why is it that we worry, and what benefit do we gain from it, if any at all? Well, for the most part, I think it's safe to say that when we worry, our mind is occupied. So one of the first things that worrying does is it occupies a space in the mind. It keeps it active, it keeps it busy, so that perhaps it doesn't have to worry that it doesn't have a solution. It's a fear of the unknown, I suppose. When we worry, our mind is occupied, and therefore we are not having to necessarily face up to the unknown, the problem, which we don't have a solution to, being the unknown. And in this way, there's a certain degree of comfort in worrying. So that's the purpose that it serves. It saves us from the more immediate pain of not knowing what to do. But it shouldn't necessarily have to be so. If you don't know what to do, that's okay. That's the first step to recognizing that, you know what, there's a problem, and that if you don't have a solution right now, perhaps one will come to you. Maybe you have to research more. Maybe you have to go and talk to whoever it is that you talk to, and maybe you need to get some advice from an expert. And in doing so, solutions will come up. But it takes a certain quietude of mind. It takes a certain space in the mind for a solution to arise for a problem. But if we don't allow or afford ourselves that opportunity, then we are going to run into some serious trouble. If we have a problem and we are constantly worrying about it, then we are consciously telling our mind that there's a problem and it's unsolvable. And that's what the subconscious picks up on. It just picks up on this idea that, oh no, there's no solution. Problem. Okay, if there's a problem now, what's going to happen? What's the, what are the inevitable worst case scenarios now in this problem? And that obviously just gets us into a bit of a downward spiral. I think we begin to panic more. We begin to get more and more worried about a problem. We get more anxious. And the problem still remains pretty well unsolved. So the function of worrying, I suppose, is to occupy the mind. Because if we have a problem and we're seen to be doing nothing about it, then that is sometimes even more uncomfortable. We want to know that we are in control. We want to know that we are actually handling a situation. Because if we're not handling it, then that's a very bad thing to be doing. And it's this worrying where we derive some comfort from. But as we know, there's nothing really positive that will come out of this whole process, which is kick-started by worrying. It leads to further anxiety and fear. And when we fear, we start looking at some of the worst case scenarios, because that's what we're telling our reticular activation system as well. So all we now see are problems, and further problems arising from whatever the original problem was. And so the problem starts becoming magnified in our minds. So how do we get over this? How do we get around this issue? Well, it's by actually looking at the situation, perhaps writing all of the whatever it is that you're dealing with down, so that you can get it out of your mind. It's really a case of getting it out from here and maybe onto a piece of paper, so that you know you're not forgetting about it. You know that it's still there and it still needs to be solved, so you don't have to worry about it quite at that level in your mind any longer. You don't have to be looking at the various factors. You don't have to consider so many things. You can have them all down on a piece of paper. Now you can look at that piece of paper as and when you choose, which affords you just that little bit of breathing room. And it's in this breathing room, this little bit of time that you've bought yourself, that you will hopefully have a solution. The solution arises from a calm mind that can engage your creative functions of the mind, and out of which hopefully a solution will arise. And that is making full use of your subconscious. So that's a little bit about worrying, and worrying doesn't really solve anything. We all have responsibilities, we all have things that we have to take care of, people that we have to take care of, things that we have to do, goals that we want to achieve. But worrying about them is only going a step backward. We have to have some degree of faith in ourselves that the solution is around the corner. If there's a problem, there's always a solution, or there's always a workaround. And if there isn't, and you know that you've looked at this problem from every angle possible, with a calm disposition, then at least there can be some degree of acceptance on your side. You can take comfort in knowing that you've done all that you can. And in doing all that you can now start looking at taking either a different step, going in a different direction, or perhaps trying to find a more creative solution, or something that was perhaps beyond your immediate sphere of control, your sphere of influence. You should now perhaps go further afield. Start asking the experts, start asking friends and family, and hopefully not someone who's prone to worrying, perhaps not someone who's got a direct stake in the problem, unless of course you can trust their judgment and their own disposition, because it's bad enough you worrying, to have another person worrying can often add further weight, further gravity to a problem. So yeah, worrying, don't let it get the better of you. Know where you stand, know the reality of the situation, align yourself with that reality. And in aligning yourself with that reality, you will find there's a certain peace, because that's where the situation is. See, we only tend to worry about things that we feel very much misaligned with. If there's a conflict of conscience, it's because we're not aligned with the reality of the situation. We're not following our integrities, or the integrities of the situation itself, the integrities of reality. And it's in this alignment that we can find some peace. And it's also where some of your greatest work will come out from as well. So always be a seeker of truth, always be a person who lives in a very grounded sense of reality. And your worries shouldn't be quite so worrying.